based upon what we know, but let us act based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord. We place this meeting in your hands. We place our hearts and minds in your hands so that you may direct us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3, approval of city council meeting minutes from June 8th, 2023. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions regarding the minutes? Hearing you see none, Mrs. Franklin, the motion for the minutes.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz. Yes. Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 4, limited courtesy of the floor. We've had no requests tonight. I'm going to jump to item 7, Mrs. Frank, first.
An ordinance and ARPA transfer ordinance number 7.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. I will turn it over to Mr. Livermore. Welcome and good evening, sir.
Good evening, council members. What I got before you is ARPA transfer ordinance number 7. What I'd like to do is transfer $40,000 from recreation contingency to public safety to purchase water barriers for the city. What these are is water barricades that we use for our events that we host in the city, Little League Parade, Williamsport Welcome World, UPMC here in the fall. These are water barricades that we'll close the roads off with to protect the citizens that are at these events. So pretty much standard. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Livermore. This was reviewed in finance, I believe. Mr. Mealy or Mr. Allison, either one of you want to speak to the conversation?
Sure, Adam. We did review this item in finance and it was generally well received. The idea being that just with a lot of things that are changing in the world right now, water barricades are those sort of larger barricades designed to stop a vehicle, and often now used at large gatherings of people. Because it's now more common for someone to try to drive a vehicle into large gatherings of people. So Scout's trying to get about 100 of these that would cover us during state parades all down the parade route to block access to any of the streets where the parade would cross. And each of these is a hard plastic that we would fill with water on site. And Scott, when it was full of water, what would it weigh?
1,600 pounds.
Okay, so it'll weigh 6. Got it.
They're roughly
So it
2
holds
feet.
200 gallons of water.
Yeah, roughly 200 gallons.
Got it. But yeah. So the idea being that these help to block vehicles from entering a parade route or a community function. We have in the past rented these, but the Streets and Parks Department feels that it would be wiser to bring these in-house. Each rental costs about $10,000 if we rent a large quantity of them. And for $40,000 we can acquire our own. Scott, what am I missing here? Or was there something you thought that I'd said in error?
Is there anything she missed?
No, yeah, you pretty much hit everything. Yep.
Okay. So Scott, to be clear, are there are entities within Williamsport that we can borrow some of these from as well, correct?
Yes, well, South Williamsport's the closest, and we go to Clinton County and then Tioga to purchase them, but to use them, but they're nowhere near enough of what we need, I guess, to run what we want to do in the city to try to block as many as roads. So some of them just don't get blocked, and we just hope that nothing happens down through that section. But by doing this, we'll bring it in-house. We'll keep them up at Streets and Parks, and for any event that we have them, we'll haul them out, and then, we can fill them up. As far as the fire department will also help us too when when needed, so.
Anyway, Adam, so as I said, it's $40,000 is coming out of ARPA. Scott was going to look into for today what the lifespan is of these barricades. Because obviously, while we might be able to take the initial purchase of 100 out of ARPA, we'll need to figure out a way to fund replacement of them through the capital budget in the future. What did you figure out, Scott?
Lifespan's roughly around 20 years. They're real thick plastic. Obviously, if you're gonna shove them down the road, they'll wear out quicker, but we take them out, we set them by hand. There's very minimal sliding, so they will last quite a while. At least 15 years, I'm gonna say.
So yeah, Adam, we'll just need to build this into the repeat purchase of this into the capital budget moving forward, as long as we're comfortable with taking the initial purchase out of ARPA. And we'll save ourselves the investment of renting them from Paul Baker on a couple of occasions every year.
Yep.
That's everything I recall. I'll defer to other members of the committee.
All right. Thank you very much, Liz. We're having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I don't know if it's on your end or Chris's, it's on Liz's end. So Liz, if you can maybe get closer to the mic next time, that would be helpful if that's possible.
I'll do my best.
Thank you very much. That was better. Awesome. It was much better. The audience agrees as well. So I have a couple of thoughts on this, but not related to this item that we're transferring money for. Before that, any comments or questions related to the barriers specifically? Mrs. Katz.
Yes. First of all, Scott, thank you for our chairs. This is great. We really appreciate it. The question I have is, why did you borrow barriers from somebody else instead of going to the chamber?
The barriers that the chamber don't have water barricades. They have the cattle
Plastic.
fencing. They're metal. So they're for keeping back people, not vehicles. These are to keep back
So
people.
these are for the streets?
Yes.
Okay, now when you block off the streets, this may not be, maybe sounds stupid, but I thought if streets were blocked off, it had to be marked by the police department. Is that
Nope.
not true?
No.
It can be streets and parks and that's all there is to it?
Yep.
Okay, and you said
City streets. Yeah.
and you said these are about 2 foot high?
2.5 feet tall. Yeah. 2 feet wide, 8 feet long. They're just full of water. We leave enough room for ADA to access down the sidewalk up through the middle because the street's closed, obviously. It's just to protect anybody standing out there watching the parade so nobody comes zipping up through.
Well, I do know that there never was enough barricades on the side streets when there are parades coming down or things like that. That I can understand. You said this would last about 15 years, but do you have to fill these up every time?
Yep. It doesn't take very long at all.
Okay, and the cost of water, that's going to be, where's that coming from?
We have a few hydrants throughout the city we draw from. We have 1,000 gallon hydrovac that we utilize for that, and that'll fill I don't know, a dozen or so or better before we have to go get more.
Okay, and how many did you say we're getting?
100.
100 of these.
Yep.
That should take care of all the side streets.
And I'm talking with some of my guys, we're still going to be short, but this will do a big portion of what we need. Because
Well-
right now we use our trucks.
Well, I can say from experience working some of the parades that the streets that weren't blocked, it really was dangerous because you would have vehicles that would come through and didn't realize what was going on.
Yeah.
So, it is important to get the streets barricaded. I really thought that you were going after something that the chamber had.
No,
Because
we
we're,
utilize what they have as well, but it's not a vehicle protected type
Okay.
of deal.
okay. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Any other comments or questions related to the barriers? Oh, okay. So a couple of additional thoughts while we're talking about rescue plan funding. So we have an updated budget more specifically for what has been spent and what is unobligated at this point. So we've got a total of just under, like literally within 500 or within $100 of just under $1.5 million unobligated. Okay. And the reason I say that, we have an item on the agenda that has been tabled related to the band shell. It appears that we may have the ability to fund that, right? And so I don't know, we need to discuss that necessarily, but I would think through that because if we do want to do that, we should let item 8 on the table and let it die. Award it, we can move that money through in second reading and take care of that. So some food for thought from members of council. Okay.
Mhm.
And I personally would be okay funding that through ARPA.
Yeah.
100%. So it's just my
I
personal
think we
thoughts.
should move it in.
Well, I mean, it'd probably be better to move it in second reading. There's like
Mhm.
10, 11 different line items, and rather than fumble
Right.
through that and more importantly, let everybody sit through that, it might be better to
Mhm.
do that second reading, but we can let item 8 die. Okay. Yes,
Did Skip, did you go after any funding for that at all?
for what?
Or for the man show?
We can move some money in our CDBG program. And it'll take
Yes,
30 to 60 days.
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know, But that's another
Yeah.
option that's out.
Okay, I didn't know if you
But no.
started the process on that at all. I was just-
First Community is already funding that partially already as
Mhm.
well, so we are getting external funding on that.
Okay,
CDBG is putting some funding into the financial already.
okay,
We exceeded what the dollar amounts are there. I could find some other money by doing a substantial amendment, but that doesn't take time.
okay. I really thought we'd go through ARPA anyhow.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments or questions on first reading of this? Okay. Mrs. Frank, on the motion for item 7 in first reading.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Thanks.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes,
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion in first reading passes 5-0. Let's, Scott, thank you very much. Want to do 5 and 6 individually or as a group? To kind of go
We can do 'em as a
together.
group.
Yeah, do them as a group.
Mhm.
So items 5 and 6, ordinances for commercial and residential LRTAs. Is there a motion and a second to open the floor for items 5 and 6?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second for 5 and 6. I'll kick these off. So what you have in front of you is, excuse me, not singular, plural. 2 different ordinances, both for LRTA programs. The first one is for a commercial LRTA. The second one is for a residential LRTA. Some of the specifics, and these were covered in ERC yesterday. Councilman Biter is not able to make it tonight, but Mr. Pelisi can speak to some of the conversation that was had. The commercial LRTA is a sliding scale abatement. First 2 years are 100%, third and fourth year 75, fifth and sixth is 50, seventh year is 25% for the commercial, institutional, and the industrial district specifically. The residential is 10-year, 100% abatement for the residential district specifically. Goal here is it's one of the few tools that we really have from an incentive perspective to try to drive new business investment, new development commercially, and ideally to bring in population to invest in residential housing, right? And you look at housing specifically between commercial and even residential. The conversation's been going on really loud recently about our lack of housing or our need for more newer housing. Ideally, hopefully, this is a mechanism to help us, I think, get that moving faster. Mr. Fink from the chamber is here. He's been a part of, I think, progressing this in conjunction with the administration, and was at ERC yesterday, not last week, yesterday, excuse me. Happy to turn it over to Mr. Pelisi from the ERC committee for any additional comments on the program and the discussion ERC. I think the last thing I would leave here is, or at least initially, I think when we combine this with our redevelopment and land bank authority, I think we've got 2 decent tools to really try to get some dilapidated properties flipped and get them better utilized. And I think the key difference that we have not been able to do before is combine this with a capitalized redevelopment authority. That's the difference here. We've given the redevelopment authority and land bank just over $2 million. They have not had that level of funding previously that I know of. So they have the teeth to go through and enact what they're able to do to get some of these properties off the tax rolls. And we can add an incentive to people to either make investments in them, take them back, get them flipped, maybe even move into the city. So I think combining them gives us a little bit of a unique opportunity that we have not had previously. And I think I'm at least hopeful that combining them will yield some little bit different results. That was part of the discussion we have, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Pelizzi from Economic Revitalization, and Mr. Fink is here for any questions. Yeah, if you would, please. So, Mr. Pelizzi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yoder. No, very, very well put. You pretty much covered every base. I wish I could add something to that would be memorable and meaningful, but you covered it all. So I'll just simply say ditto. This is absolutely great. It's something that we've been working for quite a while in the efforts with Mr. Fink and the chamber. It's about giving ourselves the access to all the tools and abilities that we have to create incentive and development here within the city for a myriad of positive reasons. But this is certainly going to be the start to what I think we all hope is going to be some really good development within our city.
Certainly. Mr. Fink, if you would be so kind, part of the discussion that we had in economic revitalization was about how we communicate this outside of the area, right? And I found some of that to be insightful. I learned a lot from that conversation yesterday, that some things that I didn't know about. And I think that would be helpful to kind of educate the public on that a little bit. I think a lot of people see a lot of the work that locally happens in trying to work with local developers to spur development, but I don't think a lot of people realize what happens on the background to broaden that reach, whether it's the state or region. Would you be able to speak a little bit to that? And we had a couple of conversations after that meeting that were additionally insightful. If you would be so kind as to share them.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, Jason, thank Williamsport Lycoming Chamber of Commerce and actually city resident as well. Want to just share a little bit more on how this is a tool. I think the key thing is to understand is the fact that, on the industrial development side of it, the city itself is challenged. I mean, I'll be upfront in terms of, if you look at what is available in terms of land for new development on the industrially zoned, which I believe council has this copy of the map, just about all of your industrial land is owned and either currently being utilized or is being held by companies who have buildings on those properties already, and any residual that they have available is for future expansion opportunities possibly. So from that aspect of it, you look at it, and the greater opportunity, I think, is going to be on the commercial side of it, in addition to the residential. On the commercial side of it, one of the things, and the industrial side of it, one of the things that we do from the chamber side of it is network with site consultants who work with companies and industrial property owners and manufacturers who may have a project that they're looking to site, for example, within Pennsylvania or within the Northeast, or they may be looking nationally. What those site consultants do is take what parameters are provided to them by the client that they're working on behalf of, and then they reach out to economic development organizations that they're aware of that may have available properties and or buildings, because there are opportunities for companies who are looking for buildings to be able to talk to them about what they have available. And there are specific parameters where you may have a building, for example, or you may have land available, but that meet their needs. But there may be things that they require in addition to that, which could be water, sewer, electric capacity, highway infrastructure, rail, all different factors that come in for each individual business. And so we will take and work with them and go through the parameters that they provide to us and we'll present what we may have, if we have anything at that time. And I will tell you, we really look to see what we can stretch. And in terms of the city of Williamsport, it's one of those things where we really try to push the city because of the fact that there are some advantages that the city has in comparison to some of the neighboring townships and municipalities here within the county. One of the key things is your highway infrastructure, your rail access that you have, in addition to available workforce within a very close area. In addition to the fact that you have public transportation that is readily available to your industrial park areas. So from that aspect of it, we sit down with those site consultants. One of the key things that we started doing back in 2017 is actually working with the Commonwealth, DCED, Office of International Business Development, along with other state partners to bring in these site consultants during Little League World Series. What we do is we host them for a nice little experience at Little League, but then we also put them on a tour to be able to see investments that have been made by industry in our area where the state has actually stepped in and partnered with them. The nice thing is we're able to feature a number of companies here in the Williamsport market in particular. West Pharmaceuticals last year, for example, was one that we used. Lycoming Engines was another one that we used. The East End corridor with the Old City District was another one that we were able to highlight. And one of the key things that we were talking to them when we brought them on the city side of it up until the end of last year was the fact that, the city is committed to economic development and being able to say that they're committed because they also have LRTA, which is something that if you have a client that is looking at being able to build on available land, you have the ability to take advantage of that because you're improving the current tax value of that property. So, and I think it's important for the residents to also know that the city's program with LRTA is not abating any existing taxes on the property or the building that is there. They will continue to collect the existing tax that is assessed on that property. It's only on the new assessed value of any improvements that they make to the property. So from that aspect of it, this is not going to be something that will adversely affect what the city currently receives. So it's a very good tool. Something that, we're very pleased to be able to hear, for example, West Pharmaceuticals here in Williamsport, when they chose to this site over two other sites that they were looking for outside of Pennsylvania. LRTA was specifically called out as one of those reasons why they picked this. So from that aspect of it, we see it as a very key tool. On the residential side of it, I will tell you, as I mentioned, I'm a city resident. And the city's population has been on the decline over the past few years. The fact of the matter is the city needs new housing development, and there is available land, whether it be sizable tracts of land or individual parcels that are currently vacant without a home. There are development opportunities here in the city. This should be a very key tool. I will commend the city on this one. That's an aggressive LRTA program that you're putting together for the residential side of it, and something I think the city can use in being able to go after that residential development.
Thank you very much, Jason. I really appreciate that. Anything more from ERC?
Just one thing I wanted to add that sparked my memory here real quick to Mr. Fink's point when we were talking about how to market these things. I don't know if the city currently has a professional social media page or presence, say on like LinkedIn or, some of those other social media outlets. But I think that would certainly be beneficial for the city to have one, create one, whatever it may be, so we can utilize that free marketing ability. Hopefully it's free. That ability to really, in addition to the chamber's efforts, to get the word out there, let people know who we are, where we are, and what we're offering.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pelisi. Mrs. Katz, you have a question or a comment?
Yes, we've had a lot of programs in the past. Excuse me, I think I'm losing my voice. We did try the residential one. But I think lack of advertising, it did not go very far. The commercial, we've had LRTAs all through the city for a long period of time. I think what we hope this is more information out there for the public. I think it would behoove us also if there was if you had an inventory of what is available, that probably would help tremendously. I don't know where we would go with that, but you and I both know there are a lot of office space downtown that could be used, office buildings that could be beneficial with the LERTA programs. I would think, if we can work in conjunction, because this has to go through the county and the school board, the school district. So therefore, maybe getting together, we can finally find something with an inventory. We do know the LERTA programs do work with the commercial, but the residential one was always a problem. And I think because the public doesn't understand what that program is all about.
Right.
And maybe if you had, we had a public forum that people can attend to advertise for this and see what they can accomplish with that. I think it would be beneficial because the program is really good. It really is good. And so those are the things that I think maybe the chamber can help, the county can could also help with that. I think it should be a combined effort by everybody because it will benefit everybody. You and you're trying to promote businesses in the area. So, but it is something that does work. We've used it in so many different areas.
Yeah, no, I will say, in working with the administration, I know they've actually provided a list of available land right now that is for residential aspect of it. So from that side of it, we do know what is out there right now that could be built upon, which would definitely enhance that opportunity. The other aspect of it is working again with the administration to be able to do informationals, as you mentioned, being able to get out to the Rotary clubs, the Lions clubs, to be able to speak to individual groups so that they're the Realtors Association, to be able to talk to the Landlord Association, those groups out there that have those contacts. I think is going to be key. And I know I included that in the marketing plan that the city had requested. So. Yeah.
It would be, and if you had a meeting like with real estate agents also who are more,
Yes.
they have their thumbs on what is available for residential, of course, business, but you would be more in tune to the business
Correct.
side of it.
Yep.
So, it's a beneficial to the city because like I said, it has worked.
Right.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Allison, you seem
Yeah.
you have one.
Yeah, I think the marketing plan is going to be a key, as Councilwoman Katz said, but I think we should, I think it's going to have to be on a larger scale. I mean, I think we should put some funds into it. I know it's good for LinkedIn and word of mouth and marketing it locally, but I think we should look beyond just marketing it locally and and come up with a plan to really attack this. And I just think because we're going to have the funds, the land bank, other particular funds. The LERTA was originally passed by the state to it was focused on blighted property and underused property, and that's why I was really in favor of the residential part being put into this, because we have blighted property, we have brownfields, we have underused areas. The Park Avenue corridor is a great example of that, and that's just waiting for development. But we need some professional planning, I believe. So I'd like for us, maybe the ERC committee to investigate what that might look like, what's working in other regions of the state and beyond, actually. So
I think to your point, especially on the residential side of it, because of how there are so many opportunities for either single parcels for new home development or larger tracts of land that could be developed that way. I mean, we can help facilitate that, but I mean, to be upfront, we don't have those direct relationships like we have on the commercial and industrial side of it. What I would recommend though is working with the local Realtors Association to be able to talk to them about statewide networks that they would be able to tap into and how to get that reach to a statewide organization so that they're aware of the map that the city administration has already developed to be able to share that information of look at these opportunities that are here in Williamsport. Here's how you can invest in a city that already has all the infrastructure, because that is one of the key things that development right now you're hearing outside of the city is the cost to develop is so great because you have to run water and sewer and roads. City's already got that. You're one step ahead of it. And I think that's a very key selling point as to why people need to look at the city of Williamsport for those development opportunities. But we can help make those contacts. But I think if beyond that, though, working with those who are a little bit more in tune as to what those right audiences are. So, yeah. But I agree that, and it's probably not a lot of money because it will be social media where you're going to make a lot of that. And to buy social media is, paid clicks and everything else. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. And very, very good point. When you look at bringing the local stakeholders that have those relations to the table, I think that's a good idea. And I know, I don't want to speak for the administration, but I know that they support this LRTA as it's designed. And I would think that they would be on board in a collaborative effort to try to, I think, help spear that. So it's a great idea. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other comments or questions for items 5 or 6? Miss Mealy, I hear you out there.
I was going to say, can you hear me now?
I
Not
can.
really?
Yeah,
I'm
you're good.
sorry,
Yep.
I'm not sure. Okay, all right, good. I will speak as loudly as possible, I promise. So Jason, yeah, I just wanted to underline what I think all of us have sort of expressed a handful of times, at least amongst one another. I have heard perhaps too many times for my liking that former LRTAs have been utilized in part by people who were planning to develop anyway. But since there was an extra tax incentive out there, they just took it. And that's, I don't mind if that's part of the cash because that's how it has to be. But I've heard a few tales, and I'm glad to hear that West Pharmaceutical is one of people who for whom a LRTA was one major factor in choosing to develop in the city. And I think that a wider reach, and especially right now, I'm hoping that LRTA can really be a game changer for us right now, because I feel like there is so much development throughout the U.S. and particularly in this sort of ring. Well, we find ourselves particularly well placed because we're reasonably close to so many major cities. I think that we are seeing a bit more development than we have in the past, and that we have a lot of opportunity right now. And if we can steer some of that into the city, that's what I hope that LRTA will help us to do. But I think that we need to be doing two things. Both we need to be marketing LRTA more aggressively, and both of these LRTAs, but secondarily, I think that we also need to be having a conversation about what else would help spur development in the city. And if there are any other carrots that we can offer as well, that would help with that. I know that we have over the last year or so been able to invest some of our ARPA funding in a handful of projects, but that is, as Adam just noted, drawing to a close. And so we need to look at what else the city can do, perhaps to help streamline codes approval processes and occupancy permits, things like that can often be a bear in small towns. How can the city, what are people saying about us, and how can we help be development friendly, not just with tax breaks, but also with making it easy to develop in the city of Williamsport. I will be happy to support this today, but I will be hoping to see it be utilized a little more than I feel that I have in the past. Thanks.
I think to your point, Liz, with regards to some of the things that could be discussed as well as some of your zoning and what is out there and being able to have a good look as to, Bonnie had mentioned about downtown and being able to have some of the commercial space that is vacant. I mean, this is not just happening in Williamsport. This is happening nationwide. There are still people who are not coming back to work in their offices. They're working it from home, and there are going to be people who are permanently going to be that way. What can be done to incentivize some of that opportunity that could be to redo some of those upper floor spaces for residential? And I think that's where you can really sit down and look at your zoning. And again, I think that's working with your administrative team to sit down and say, okay, what can we do? How can we do this? Because population, I think, is going to be the key. You know, when we bring in companies or we help companies expand their operations, one of the first things I hear is from existing companies is, where are we going to get? They're just going to take our employees. You know, right now it's a big issue right now of while we're bringing in all of these industries and helping companies expand, when they're adding 25, 30, 50, 100 jobs, whatever that number is, all I hear is from those other companies who are saying, where are we getting all these employees? So I think being able to put that campaign together to understand what can you do to add to your housing base, because, you know, we hear from whether it be UPMC, the colleges, existing manufacturers who are trying to bring in people from outside of the area. There's no place for them, and there's no place outside of the city either, or neighboring counties.
Mr. Fink, to your point,
Yeah.
it's tough right now. It's gonna be tough for a long time.
Yep.
It's not just gonna be a switch and flip back and be like it was maybe 10 years ago. Just labor demographics are completely changing.
Yep.
And whether people like this excuse or not, the pandemic made it worse, and made it more permanently worse because they realize I can do this from home, or I don't really need to work. Right? There's less people out in the labor market. So it makes figuring that out that much more important.
Mhm.
Absolutely right. Liz, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. I don't think I did. Okay.
No, on the contrary, Adam, I didn't mean to cut you off, sorry. But no, I was just gonna second I think that is perhaps one of the things that we should be co-marketing if we're marketing a residential LERTA, is saying that this is a city that is hungry for housing. Jason? Because I hear that everywhere I go. You know, we need workers here, and everywhere in the US needs workers, but specifically our workers need housing. And we're doing what we can to alleviate that, but it is a long-term project. I think if we can tout some of that as well, the extent to which we truly, you know, do have needs there, that might make a residential LERTA more of a useful tool in our toolbox. Okay, thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Any other comments or questions on items 5 or 6? Okay, Mr. Lubin.
Yes, ordinance for Article 353. There's a couple of spots where dates have to be put in. Primarily in section 3.
Okay.
Is how long do you want this ordinance to last? Not
Okay.
asking for amendments tonight because we have second reading.
Yeah.
But Article 3 has a couple of spots where
Okay.
dates have to be filled in. How long do you want this?
Yeah.
In order to extend, and then the same thing for the effective date, and
Okay.
adding a provision, a savings clause to save the other provisions of Article 353.
Okay.
And same thing with 355. There's a couple of spaces where dates have to be added, and also that we have that Lake Common County to the ordinance because they were not part of the residential LERTA.
Okay. So
there's a few spots where those dates. If you have an idea tonight, that's good. If not, we could do it on second reading.
yeah, I would suggest second reading. There's a couple of, I think, language things that we'll need to generate specifically, but I think dates will be pretty easy. But I would, if everybody's okay with it, I would suggest we do that second reading.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, here you see none. Mrs. Frank on the motion for items 5 and 6.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes for items 5 and 6 in first reading 5-0. Jason, thank you for
Hey,
your work.
thank you.
Thank you very
Have a good
much.
evening.
We're gonna jump down here to item 10, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution to approve the participation of the city of Williamsport in Arteas Impact Investment Program.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'll cover this for Mr. Biter, who was not able to make it tonight. So this is a resolution to approve participation in a investment program. So there is a impact investment firm, and for the public who's not aware of that, impact investing is essentially private money brought to the table, and they focus on investing in areas that are not typically focused on by traditional private equity, private investment firms. As terrible as this sounds, they're looking to make a profit, but they are not looking to make the profits that they could essentially make investing in New York, Chicago, the traditional areas where you see a lot of private equity investments. This group specifically takes advantage of the Keystone Opportunity Zones, or the opportunity zones that are littered across the country. In Pennsylvania specifically, has taken advantage of them in, I believe, Erie is a city, for example. I believe there was a place in Northeast PA as well. I can't remember for sure. They are interested in making investments in Williamsport specifically. The opportunity zones in Lycoming County are both located in the city. First Community Foundation actually came across this opportunity in some of their work that they've been doing recently, and it's kind of led this opportunity. And through, I think, investigating that, they found that in addition to the capital that the firm likes to put in, they ask for a local match. And the reason for that local match is this is first loss capital. Okay, so if there's an investment that's made that is not good, or I'm probably messing this up, Vince, by all means, you can chime in here. If there's an investment that does not succeed, the local match is what is lost first, right?
So, yeah, what is commonly referred to is first in, last out.
Yes.
Meaning that our money's going to go in, but there's no guarantee that we will get our investment back. Their primary, the primary of any capital gain automatically goes to their primary investors first and foremost. And then if there is funding that does come from the return on the investment, that will be paid back to us.
Yes.
When we talked about it, I do remember asking specifically if there had ever been an instance to where that has occurred, to where they made an investment to where the first in, last out investment, meaning the city or an entity as such, had ever not received their return on investment. And Patrick, I forget his last name, had said that he could not recall, doesn't believe there was ever an instance to where the investment of the municipality was never returned. So what we're really looking at here is, the joint investment venture with the FCFP, with the chamber, with the county, to be able to use and leverage that joint funding to act as catalyst capital for Arcturus to come in and invest their $20 million into our area, into the different opportunity zones, or in this particular case, one specifically for the furtherment. And of course, they're going to make some capital gains on it. Now, to Mr. Yoder's point, they're not looking to make massive capital gains. I believe what they look to return on is approximately 6%, which anyone in the audience or anyone listening knows 6% is kind of below the anticipated average return on an investment.
Traditional private equity is 20 to 25% minimum.
Yes.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's relatively low. The focus is more on the long-term impact and the long-term gain, the long-term ROI. And that is where the real payback is going to come in. It's certainly a safe way that somebody with a private portfolio may want to hedge their risk is looking at something that's a safe investment, potentially a lower return, but over a longer period of time. And that's essentially what Arcturus is looking at doing.
Correct. Well said. Thank you.
You're welcome
for saving me there. I
Oh,
appreciate
no,
it.
you had it.
So there's that, absolutely. And so they're planning to put in $20 million with the local match capital. We're looking at a $25 million investment. And what makes this a little bit different than I think a lot of the traditional investments that we see, whether it's development, et cetera, they really have a really broad portfolio and level of expertise in what they invest in. So certainly there's the real estate option for sure, but they've got a long track record of making investments in small to medium businesses, minority owned, small business, women owned, to help with either growth capital or startup capital. They've done a lot of work with food deserts, for example. So we talked about that idea specifically in trying to get areas of the city that don't have easily accessible grocery access, right? There's opportunities for that. They really get outside the box and really diversify the type of investments that they make, which I think makes this opportunity very, very exciting. So it's a little bit of background on that. They have a lot of, I would say, outside resources that I don't know that this area has had exposure or access to before as well, to help some of the demographics in our community, whether it's business resources, that kind of stuff. I mean, we certainly have those here, but I think more and different perspectives is always a good thing for sure. So that's a little bit of background on this. Couple of finer details, and then I'll turn it over to the conversation in ERC and other members. So this is saying we want to be part of this program. There are conditions to that though. So we are planning to do a local match contribution of $1.25 million. That is 1/4 of the $5 million. The other remaining money is hopefully being evenly split between First Community, the Lycoming County, and the Williamsport Lycoming Chamber of Commerce. So our participation is contingent on those three parties also participating. We are full transparency as well, still working through where we're going to pull the capital from on our end. There are a handful of options. I'm not necessarily worried about us not having the capital. It's figuring out how we utilize the different buckets that we have to do that. So we're working through that. And then there is a formal agreement that is a part of this that is being reviewed by solicitors right now. That's going to take longer than the end of the month. And the reason we're doing it this way, to get in this round, we need to do some level of commitment like this by the end of the month. So this is committing us to get in that round, but this is non-binding. There are a multiple amount of triggers that get us out of that if we don't need, whether it's terms and conditions, not finding or having the funding, other partners deciding to not participate. So a little bit of background. I think this is very, very exciting. I'm excited for it personally. I think other members are as well. I'll let them speak for themselves. Mr. Pelizzi, I'll turn it back over to you if there's anything final from ERC.
No, I appreciate it. Just speaking one more point to your point of in full transparency. The estimated ROI to the city on this potential investment would be approximately 2% of a return, which equates to $25,000 of a $1.25 million investment. But looking at it as the whole, our $1.25 million is 5% of what would be the entire $25 million invested. So for us to be able to, again, invest 5% of this project and use that to leverage it, it really is, and I think, and I believe it's a great opportunity for us to really look at making a long-lasting positive impact on the development of the city, and really taking advantage of the ancillary effects and impacts that are going to come with it. So, yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Mr.
all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pelizzi.
Yes, sir.
Any comments from other members of council on this resolution? or the opportunity, et cetera.
Yeah.
Mr. Allison.
It is, and I think it's important to note, this particular item and some of the other ones we've talked about are, there's going to be short-term realizations, but we're really building for the future, beyond maybe where this council is going to be in place, so that the city is itself going to be more stable, more fruitful, and have more development. And I just thought it was interesting that they identified Williamsport as a place that they felt was a good fit for what they do. They don't just, you don't apply to be part of it. They identify who they think it's going to work, and they have a lot of experience and expertise in this area. So they identified us, and I think that's speaks well to the opportunity we have here. And I also like that it's really going to serve some demographics that we're not strong in right now, but they could become a strength in the city. So there's a lot of positives, but this is just the first step that he said, and we'll see.
Here, here. Thank you, Mr. Allison. Mrs. Katz.
All I have to say is it's exciting to see that we're going to have opportunities to use companies that are going to bring growth to our city and growth for the future. And to have this company come in here that has probably a lot of more expertise than we have, I think is going to be a wonderful opportunity. So it's going to be exciting between the Lourdes and this. I think we're going to do really well.
Here, here. Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Mr. Pelisi.
No, if I just may add one more thing, and then I promise I'm done talking about this, but when I think of this project, I think of a saying I once heard, and it went something like, a wise person plants seeds of a tree that they know they may never bask in the shade of, thinking of the generations to come that are going to be able to enjoy the fruits of that labor. Hopefully they'll come sooner than that. But that's really, I think, the approach that we're looking at here is the long-lasting positive effects of this.
Well said.
That's all I have, I promise.
Any other comments?
And I would just second all of that, Adam. Particularly Vince's comment that but this is, we're looking at the long haul here. We're not looking at the short haul, but that is something that has failed to happen, I think, a lot in the city. We're always looking for short-term gain, and that's not, that can't in the end be the thing that supports us and sustains us. So I think that this is an exciting project, and I would agree with Bonnie that having an outside set of eyes on Williamsport and looking to see what has worked elsewhere and what might work here, I feel will also be potentially advantageous for us. I have high hopes for this partnership, and I certainly hope that this first step leads eventually to the fruition of this investment in the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Any other comments? Okay. Here you see none. Mrs. Frank, on the motion for item 10, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy, Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Okay, we'll jump back up to item 8. Would you read that, Mrs. Frank?
resolution to reject all bids for the Brandon Park Band Shell Rehabilitation Project.
And this is to remove it from the table. So if we don't want to remove this from the table, it dies, meaning we would like to award it to somebody, right? So is there a motion in a second to remove it from the table? Okay. So item 8 dies. We'll move to item 9, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing payment from the City Council Legislative Contingency.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. So this was not reviewed in the committee. My apologies. So this is a resolution just authorizing a $3,000+ payment from legislative contingency. This is in relation to the settlement with Ungard. And rather than go through a process to remove a little bit more from the reserve emergency fund, I personally thought it best, let's just pull from contingency, get the check cut, get it done, and get this behind us. But Norm wanted to have a resolution just to be safe. And so that is what this is. And that is what I know about it.
I think it wise to listen to the advice of counsel.
Any other comments or questions on the resolution? All right, here you see none, Mrs. Frank, on item 9, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mrs. Katz.
Yes,
Mr. Yoder,
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you all. We'll move to item 11, Mrs. Frank.
resolution authorizing the purchase of internet services through River Valley Internet.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
second,
Motion and a second. I will turn it over to the man behind the cameras, the one and only. And I can't stall that long. I'm just kidding. Mr. Black, I'll turn the floor over to you. Good evening and hope you are well.
I'm sorry, I turned this off because it was feeding back a little bit.
No worries.
This is a resolution to provide internet service to Shaw Park for camera coverage that we're putting in place there. It's at $75 a month with an initial install fee of $150. This will be a month-to-month payment or contract, however you want to call it. Will be coming out of my contracted services.
Thank you, Mr. Black. This was discussed in finance, Ms. Mealy or Mr. Allison, either one.
this was discussed in finance, and was generally favorably reviewed, Adam. I would actually yield to Mr. Allison on this one to continue discussing our discussion. Thanks, Randy.
You bet. Would you go over the particulars about the cameras, and we talked about the coverage and those kinds of things? You could, so that the public can hear that part of it.
Sure. This is a project in growing. Right now, there's a total of 3 external cameras coverage. There is some more construction that's going to be taking place at the park, where eventually there'll be a total of between 6 and 8 cameras covering everything from the playground equipment to the east through the splash pad, the basketball courts, tennis courts, all that. There is 1 camera on the inside, just facing the rear door to see who comes in and out. Just to make sure nobody comes in the back door and takes a wrong turn to the wrong restroom, basically.
Right.
And then there is another one out on the northeast corner covering the pavilion that's sitting out there. This is a system it records detections. It doesn't constantly record unless we tell it to. You can view it from your phone, website, whoever's been given authorization to do that. Or you can watch it live if need be. But it's not a live only. It can currently, with all the cameras that I plan to put in there, hold about 45 days of recording incidents. Detections is what they call it.
And what's recorded belongs to the city.
Correct.
So
we're
it's
installing this. This is ours. It's not sitting on somebody's cloud. It's ours.
right. So I think it's important important aspect of this is that we've invested a lot of money in our parks with the ARPA funds. So to protect that investment and to guard the way things are in the world today, this is a good investment on our facilities that we hope are going to be there for a long time for people to enjoy. So the plan is down the road to expand this to other parks.
Yes, this one we put up first because we wanted to get the splash pad open as soon as possible. And there's less people there on a personnel side. Next will be Memorial Pool. I'm updating the cameras that are currently there now that we can use the same system. And then shortly after that, push that also out to the basketball court and the playground equipment that they have along 4th Street. Los Park will be after that, then Newbury Park. And at some point, then probably next year, Youngs Park and Brandon. Brandon's going to be a bit more difficult just because of the size and all the trees. That's not
Right,
fun.
yeah. So that's the basics of the equipment and what it's gonna do and what we're using it for. We're not spying on people or anything like that. It's just to ensure that we can protect our facilities. As an aside to this, part of the discussion that we had in the committee was we're talking about software here and software costs and those kinds of things. And we feel like for council that we should begin to collate all that we have. And so we know where we're at because there's a cost to each piece of software and each contract that we enter into to provide that. So just so we have an idea where we're at, that citywide through all the departments, we can begin to check into, keep tabs on that in the future. That's all.
Thank
Oh
you.
my God.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Katz, you have a question?
Chris, it's $75 a month for this. If you go in, when you do go to the other parks,
It would be identical
it would be identical and
to
we,
each of these,
I would,
except Memorial Pool Park. I do not have to add anything as we already have connectivity there.
but with each park cost is $75 a month.
Yes.
So you're talking to add that on too,
Mhm.
but it's a necessary evil at this point.
Yeah, if you want the coverage, this is what you got to do.
And the cost of the cameras, that's coming out of your,
Currently, yes.
so
Yes.
therefore
This
you're gonna,
is-
you're gonna be
this-
running out of money soon.
I spend well.
Like you spend, well, okay.
I spend well. Total for the project for Shaw Park is probably going to hit around $3,500 all told. The cameras are roughly $200 to $300 a piece. And the storage is another $250. And it's at the price of these cameras compared to other systems. If I have one die, I can readily replace it as opposed to spending $2,500 on the camera with the same life expectancy.
And what is the life expectancy?
Roughly 3 years,
3 years?
give or take, depends on how much the power goes up and down, because every time that does, that's an issue. This building is not heated, so I bought equipment to run it in the cold.
Okay,
It's made to go down to about 10 degrees.
okay, so we have to be prepared for the other parks with, you're not gonna have as many cameras in some of the other parks.
As
that
some
you
of the
have at Shaw.
others, correct. Shaw, they're probably going to be about the same average as Shaw. Memorial will definitely have many, many more, just because of the pool itself. I mean, there's 9 cameras right there.
And Los Park, with everything that's been done in Los Park at this point, is there capabilities in Los Park? Do you have to do anything extra for there? I think you
Yes,
do,
I do have, there is capability, but I do have to do extra.
because we have
Because
that in
there
some
is
of the
no
other
physical,
parks.
there is no physical structure there. Like even Newbury Park has a physical structure in the middle. Lowe's Park has the shed, the backyard shed at the
Mhm.
end of the community garden. I would not be comfortable putting this amount of equipment in that type of structure.
That's why I'm questioning. Some of these parks
Yeah.
are not conducive sometimes,
Mhm.
and we're gonna have to build some other
And
ways
I
of doing it.
will admit that I have yet to visit Young's, so I have no idea what's there.
I think that was a problem years ago.
more
Randy,
likely.
wasn't there a problem with the cameras and?
Well,
and-
we couldn't get coverage into the east end
Yeah.
because we weren't using the cloud or anything like that. We need the physical boosters to get it into that part of the
From
city.
what I've read of that particular project, they were trying to do wireless connectivity all the way back to the Edwin Street high rise and then
Right.
back down. This is where I am doing wireless from that particular location to a tower on the mountain.
Mhm.
I've already had River Valley come through and survey each of the locations that we're planning on this year. And we have those all worked out. Ironically, the only one that was the biggest issue was Memorial. But we don't need it there. The other three were, yeah, we can do this.
If I may, real quick, River Valley, speaking to Mr. Black's point, uses the repeating tower over on the mountain that I believe is also a repeating tower utilized by state services. I said, I believe that's also a tower that's utilized, obviously not in the same bandwidths or frequencies, but is it also utilized by state services too?
That one I don't know. I know the one on Armstrong Mountain is used by the county.
Okay,
I don't know about the one over to the west of it. I
okay.
don't know.
I thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank, on the motion for item 11, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mrs. Katz,
Yes,
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 12, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing renewal for Unitred's backup recovery solution.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
second,
Motion and a second, Mr. Black.
Good evening once again. This is to renew our backup solution that we have with Unitrends, which is being done business by, not as, but doing business as Kaseya is the parent company now for Unitrends. This is a continuation of the appliance that we currently have, which is at end of life. It's a replacement for it. The initial year cost is $12,008.50. That includes a $700 fee of them facilitating moving everything from the old appliance to the new. After that, for the next years 2 and 3, it's at a cost of $11,308.50.
Thank you, Mr. Black. This was also reviewed in finance, Ms. Mealy or Mr. Allison.
Yes.
yep, this also went through finance. Sorry, Randy. Yes, Adam, this also came through finance and was well received, I think, by everyone. It's just a simple backup. This was where we had a little bit more discussion about our ongoing commitments and what those were going to look like over the years, how much they were likely to increase. I believe Mr. Biter was of the opinion, and I don't know, I doubt, Chris, that you've had time to tabulate it, but that we were looking at about $200,000 a year in ongoing software contracts. Cheap compared to what we'd need for manpower to perform the same functions, but worth tracking and worth knowing about. But other than that, this is something that, of course, we absolutely have to have. This is the cost of doing business. Randy, what else do you have to add?
Nothing.
Thank you both.
Sweet.
Any other comments or questions from other members on item 13?
Item 12.
Item 12.
12, yes, my bad. Thank you very much. Hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Franklin, item 12.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mrs. Katz,
yes,
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 13, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing an agreement between the Williamsport Bureau of Fire and McClure Company.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Chief Ungst, good evening.
Good evening, President and members of council. Before you is a resolution to replace the HVAC system at fire headquarters. For this year's budget, we had budgeted $27,000 for the replacement. And we have a bid of $25,658 for the replacement. It'll come out of the facility maintenance, and it was sent to the solicitor.
Thank you, Chief Ungst. This was discussed in public safety. Mr. Pelisi, do you mind covering the conversation?
No, not at all. Forgive me, I just popped a hard candy. So, no, as everything, the facilities need updated. That's always going to happen. I don't know when the last HVAC system was installed, how long ago it was.
1980, when the building was built,
1981,
1980.
1980, 43 years.
We've gotten our
So,
life out of it.
Yeah, certainly have gotten our life out of it. And I know that we have, just so we know that the funds are coming out of the fire department's budget.
Correct. Facility maintenance.
Yep, and we did budget $27,000 for this project. However, I think that there were some more questions regarding this project that I think some of the members of council that we want to try and get a little bit of clarity on. Hopefully it won't take too long, but I think for the sake of getting the clarity that we need on this, I would think that we should table this until we're able to ask all the questions that we need to ask. But certainly, moving hastily with it, that way we can start getting the new HVAC system put in. We certainly don't want our firefighters to feel any heat that they don't necessarily have to, right? Sorry, that was a horrible attempt. But
You making that motion, Mr. Pelisi?
yes, I would make a motion that we table
Item 13.
item 13.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to table. Any comments or questions on the motion to table? Yeah, hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Frank, on the motion to table item 13, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion to table passes 5-0. Chief, thank you very much. We'll move to item 14, except for filing, we've got Veterans Memorial Park meeting minutes from May 6, 2023, Public Works meeting minutes from December 6, 2022. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the meeting minutes? Hearing seen none, Mrs. Frank on the motion for except for filing.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
yes,
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Item 15 announcements. Our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held on July 6th, Thursday, 7 p.m. right here at Trade Transit 2. Upcoming meetings, Wednesday, June 28th at 11:30 a.m. is our redevelopment authority. Monday, July 3rd at 12 p.m. Is our planning commission. Tuesday, July 4th, city government will be shut down and closed for Independence Day. Wednesday, July 5th, 9 a.m. economic revitalization, 11:30 a.m. Public safety, 1 p.m. finance, 2:30 p.m. public works. Thursday, July 6th at 7 p.m. is our next city council meeting. Any comments from members of city council? I've got one thing really quick. I will be brief because there are a number of people in the audience that want to address us, and I look forward to that. We will be meeting after 4th of July. I would remind the public on fireworks, okay?
Thank you.
And Chief, please correct me if I'm wrong on anything here. So this is one of the items that we all get calls about. That is a big nuisance for residents in the city. I've got an almost 2-year-old now. It was an interesting time last year. I've got friends that are veterans that have PTSD, et cetera. So the ordinance for fireworks in the city, there is really nowhere in the city where legally they're allowed to be shot off, right? Between the safety, the nuisance, the fire hazard that they are not allowed or legally allowed to be fired off in the city limits of Williamsport. This is a very difficult ordinance for city officials to enforce, right? If you want to help us enforce this, I think the best thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is you have to call, right? If you see people shooting it off, If you have safety concerns, you need to call, whether it's the fire or police department, and respond. Specifically with this one, because by the time they're shot off, I think our first responders, by the time they're able to get into the area, it's really difficult to track those down. So we really need the public's help in that effort. And I would urge, I'm somebody that likes fireworks, right? Where I grew up, I bought them, shot them off all the time, right? I do not do that now. For the courtesy of my neighbors, but I mean, they're a fire hazard, 100%. So I would urge the public, please help us in enforcing that. And please be considerate of your neighbors, both the safety and nuisance to your neighbors on 4th of July, but have a wonderful and safe Independence Day. So anything to add, Chief? Thank you. Any other comments from members of City Council? Any comments from the administration tonight? Comments from the public? There's a number of people from the public. Thank you for waiting through our meeting and for me stumbling through my comments on the fireworks. I'll open the floor for comments from the public. For those of you that have not offered comments before, the way this works, if you would like to make a comment, by all means come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You've got 3 minutes individually, but I know there's a group here for a specific item. If there's somebody speaking on your behalf, or if there's a couple of you, I'd be happy to accommodate some additional time so you can get your message across. So the floor is open for comments from the public. You're welcome to. Would you come to the podium? Most importantly, so we can hear you.
Hello. Is there a way I can either have a table or sit?
Yeah, let's pull that up for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm with Waitman Block Apartments. I'm the property manager there. My name's Cindy Pardee. And I also have a member of my staff and 2 of my residents here to speak as well. My area supervisor has COVID. She was going to try to participate via Zoom, but I don't think she's doing that. But I'm just going to start by just letting you know why I'm here. I manage Shamrock Bar as their landlord. I've been at Waitman Block for 11 years, so I've been amongst them for 11 years. And my company bought this property, the Waitman Block, in 2016. So they've owned this for 7 years, the new owners, and they are RDG Waitman Block Associates out of Harrisburg. And I just wanted to discuss with the city the problems we're having with Shamrock Bar. We're having some pretty serious problems. It's been ongoing for quite some time. And in order to be concise and kind of keep in with that time limit, I'm not going to be able to give all of what I wanted to today, but I will give you a little bit of an outline of what I'm going to go over. And I have a couple quick video clips and some other people that want to speak, including retired law enforcement officer and resident of ours, Tom, and retired resident Jeff.
Certainly.
So what I'm going to show you at this point is a lot of violations regarding Shamrock and the violations that they're having. Some of them are very violent, and there's a lot of criminal activity. And in this situation, I have also wanted to show you what we have tried to do to help make this situation work as their landlord, and also for the community members and residents that have to deal with all the problems that we're having there. So I'm going to go over a couple details of what is going on couple quick video clips, and then I'm gonna also let you know the steps I have taken and our ownership has taken to try to put an end to the trouble that we're having. So. What I have here is just lease violations. So all the violations that I'm going to mention today are all captured on video, and we have pictures and descriptions of the incidents. Our company, when they did buy this in 2016, they put in a $16,000 camera system. We have 32 colored cameras. They're high definition. Thank you.
Keep going.
Oh, okay. And those are just some of the features that our new ownerships put in so that they can make the Waitman a great place. They're amazing apartments. We've made them into very distinctive apartments and lofts. Everything's been completely remodeled. We put in all new sidewalks, new roof, all new interior, common areas. We've really put a lot of money into this, and we have some great residents that live there. You have to pass a criminal background check, credit check. You can't have any evictions. You have to have a positive landlord reference, and you have to meet our income requirements to live there. These are all lease violations from the last 2 years. I figured that was enough to get the point across, but specifically I have stuff from the last 4 months, and I can show you a couple quick clips as well. But when we write out a lease violation, we kind of put what happened briefly, and then we have pictures and video for each violation letter. So for example, these are all from April through present. So they're all in the last 4 months. We have disturbing and harassment of residents, illegal activity, action causing police to be called. Let's see. Just multiple action causing police to be called, and you'll see the description of what the incident was, the pictures and everything. We have a lot of drug activity and drug dealing that I can show you stuff, videos for that. I have a couple pictures too. I know you can't see them from there, but this is a large group of Shamrock customers that are outside gambling with dice, and they're on top of residents' cars. They're drinking, they're loud. It's just quite a big disturbance. And then I'm going to show you a lot of drug deals. I actually did talk to the police department probably on about 8 occasions recently to ask their help, to showing them the videos and to ask for their help and what can be done. So we're having public urination, employee urinating on trash can. Let's see, fighting, physical assault, loitering, trespassing. This was recently, this was actually the 16th of this month. There was a really big fight. There was over 44 people involved. The police did come to the incident. It was just horrific. People just really beating the crap out of each other. There was so many injuries. It was just deplorable. Our residents are in fear in their own home. Jeff, who's going to speak tonight, will tell you his living room window is to the back parking lot of the Shamrock. So his backyard is watching all these terrible things happen. And we have, let me see what else we got here. On May 24th, the police came twice to the bar and once to the six-pack store due to fighting and a domestic dispute. They confiscated a car that had drugs in it. Let's see. The Shamrock was given a letter back in April trying to ask them to get control of their residents, and the list on this letter just of all the things that had occurred within that month. Here's another one. A woman was aggressively assaulted while a crowd of 8 people gathered to watch. The woman was slammed into a resident's vehicle, severely beaten. Residents came out of their apartment to witness this and try to break things up. On April 5th, a large group of 11 patrons filtered out of the back of the bar. It was a rowdy, loud crowd. They were again gambling with dice. This was another letter sent to the owners of the Shamrock explaining what had happened. April 6th, 8 to 16 people over a 2-hour period gathered in front of the bar. Open container, fighting, bad language. It's just, I could read all these. I could read these all night. There's, one second. So I have 150 written lease violations here in the last 3 years alone. These are only items that we were able to capture on film. So that doesn't include all the other things that have happened that are not accounted for in my paperwork. But we have documentation of repeated attempts to end the criminal activity, fighting, drug and gang activity at the violence and danger of this nuisance bar. The bar is out of control. It's been so for the 7 years that my owners have owned the property. And we've seen many other bars shut down in this city for far less infractions. And our city needs to step up and protect us from this horrific, dangerous bar. Our residents and others in the community should not live with the extreme fear and anxiety that the Shamrock Bar is placing on them. This is an upscale property that is trapped, surrounded by the Shamrock and its endless criminal activity and dangerous behavior. Enough's enough. We can ask that our great city and this council to shut down this nuisance bar for good so more people are not seriously hurt or even killed. I have here a list of some of the more serious infractions, which include a person being shot and killed. I have the police report on that. That was several years ago. A woman was recently, just a few months ago, beaten and had a miscarriage and lost her unborn child. A woman was strangled by jumper cables, slashed in the face, and badly beaten. There's a long list of beatings by men and women in our lease violations. Shots fired at residents' window. I have the police report on that. Shots fired through the bar, hitting the back wall. Shots fired into the bar front door. I have the police report on that. Residents smashing out windows and smashing the office window. I have both of those separate incidents video. And it just goes on and on. There's so much gang and drug activity. So just to kind of sum it up here, I'm going to show you a couple quick video clips. And then I also wanted to go over, before I show those video clips, what steps we have taken. You're probably asking, well, we're the landlord. Why don't we just evict them? Why don't we just make them leave? Or they're not following their lease. Well, we have made attempts to work with them, and including in 2017, we got a right to know paper from the city of incidents that occurred at the Shamrock. There were 71 police calls in a 16-month period back in 2017. We drafted a letter to the Shamrock to tell about that particular list of infractions. We later scheduled a meeting with both owners of the Shamrock, which at the time was Bobby Griffin, who has since passed away, Peggy Letta, and then Peggy's son Todd, who is an attorney in the area, and he's the Acton Daily manager. He's there every day. He's working behind the bar, so I would consider him a manager, even though he'll tell you he's not the manager, but he's doing all the duties that a manager would, and he's there on a daily basis behind the bar. Let me see, 1 second. At the meeting we had with the ownership and Todd, the owner said, Bobby said that nothing good happens here after midnight. We talked to the Shamrock. They seemed very cooperative, and we asked them if they would do last call at 11 p.m. and have the bar empty by 12 midnight instead of 2 a.m., which was what they used to do before COVID. We did ask that. They agreed. They later provided a letter from attorney Todd, who's the son and manager of the Shamrock. I don't know if he's still legal counsel, but he was at the time. And he said that he had every right to stay open to 2 a.m. and was not going to close early as we had discussed. So our owner, Dwayne, responded to that, basically just saying that we don't see this going well if they don't cut down the hours. And then in 2020, we offered the Shamrock if they would close the bar, we would do a 3-year lease and they could continue to run the 6-pack and sub shop and have their liquor license. They declined that offer. In 2021, we sought to terminate the lease. We got an attorney from our Harrisburg office, Steve Williams. He deemed all the problems at the Shamrock and the criminal activity as a breach of the lease. We spent from December 2021 until March 2022, 4 months trying to evict the Shamrock. We were not successful. We spent over $7,000 trying to do this. We did make them 2 additional offers at that time. We said if they would end their lease within 7 months, we would give them a full refund of all 7 months rent. So they would therefore be renting for free for 7 months and then close their business. They declined that offer. We also offered them to end their lease in 12 months and get a 50% refund of all rent paid for that year. They declined that offer. One moment. As far as us trying to come to a resolution for the Shamrock or end their lease, like I said, we were unsuccessful. We were actually told by Shamrock's attorney that they were going to run circles around us for 2 to 3 years. So we might as well not even try to continue to evict them. I have a document from their attorney showing in an email that he wrote to me that particular premise, which I'm going to read to you here, and then I'm going to wrap it up here. So I'm going to read that to you. That's from their attorney. All the resolutions I mentioned that we tried before are all in either internal documents or emails, all the things I just mentioned about trying to have the Shamrock removed. Okay, so basically the attorney said basically that we said that we wanted to close the Shamrock. It said the fact remains that we cannot reach an agreement. It will likely take at least 3+ years to litigate this matter. I recently had 2 judges retire, which leaves only 3 judges in a 5-county region. Replacement judges will not be seated until the year 2025, which is 2 years from now. Senior judges are filling in, but the caseload continues to back up and the criminal cases take precedence. That was what he put in writing, but he actually just told us he was going to run us in circles for 2 to 3 years. Now I have that as well. So I'm going to quick show you these videos and then just briefly, very briefly, I'm going to have my residents speak to you. But I might need Mr. Black to get me started here.
Chris, do you mind just helping her through that, if you don't mind staying up there with her?
Okay, This first recording is a fight that happened about a week and a half ago. Let me see if they'll let me make it bigger. So you'll see here, there's someone on the steps. The gentleman comes out of the bar. I believe he's an employee just because he's there almost every night. His babysitter brings his little kid in to say hi. He brings out the trash. Pretty sure he's an employee, but you'll see here, he, right now he's going to start striking this individual on a second here when he goes back and sits down, but, he's beaten so severely that, he sustained a lot of injuries. Okay, maybe it'll be, no, sorry, the video's being glitchy. Okay, it's almost there. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was. So he's gonna go over now. He hits the guy about 12 times. As you can see how it's in fast motion. He just slams him into the cement, into the steps, he just beats him to a pulp. Here's a picture of him trying to walk away. He really struggled. He was in bad condition. That was just last week from a Shamrock employee beating up a customer. And then I just have a couple other quick ones. All right. I have the video of him trying to walk away, but I'm gonna get to some of these other ones. All right, this is, I think I only have very few clips to show you here, but this is a bar fight from March. I'm going to kind of skip ahead, okay, to save some time here. So you see they're behind the cars. It's very violent. I'll just skip ahead here. You get the point. See, they're still fighting. This occurs like constantly. It's just ridiculous. I expect a bar would have fights, but not this frequency. All right, let me just real quick here do okay, where'd they go, Mr. Black? I'm going to show you a riot that happened a couple Fridays ago on the 6th, well, on the 16th. Thank you, sir. All right, so this is okay, here it is. This is what our main problem has been recently in the last, I'm going to say 16 months. Huge crowds of people, big fights, lots of bad stuff. Sometimes they're filling up the street. I'm sorry, this is in slow-mo. I'm just going to skip ahead, but you get the point. There's 44 people in this fight. There, you can kind of see there, but it's just yet another day. I just want to point out, when we try to do what we can to end this, we kind of get the same thing, and you'll see it if I had time to show you the documents from the attorney, our attorney and their attorney. Everything they're just saying is circumstantial evidence. Well, that wasn't open container. How do you know that was beer? Well, that wasn't a drug deal. They were buying a stick of gum. Well, that wasn't a drug deal. You know, just, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but we're just constantly told that it's circumstantial evidence and we're not going to be able to ever prove what it is. It's even hard with video with the police. You know, they can look at it, you know, they have their experts, you know, they're drug task force experts and everything, but we're just not getting any help because these things are hard to prove definitively. I mean, we have a person who was dealing drugs. He would go in the Shamrock and buy a bag of chips, dump the chips in their garbage can, put his drugs and his money in the bag of chips and stand out back and do his drug deals. We have another video I'm going to just show you real briefly here. A Shamrock employee dealing drugs. You'll see him coming in and out multiple times.
Yeah, well, we don't need to see.
You don't need to
additional-
see it, you get the
No,
point.
We
Okay.
we get the point. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
I understand. If you could just real briefly, my two residents are going to come up. They just have a couple quick sentences to say. One of them is retired police officer Tom, and the other one is a retired member by the name of Jeff, and they both live in our building. Mr.
Thank-
Tilson,
Thank you very much.
thank you for allowing me to speak so long. I know I might have exceeded the time, but I didn't know I had a time limit or I would have prepared
No,
differently.
that's okay.
Okay.
We normally do, but
Okay,
we're able to
thank
make
you.
exceptions here and there. If you would state your name for the record.
Thomas Tilson, 770 West Fourth. I'm a retired law enforcement officer for over 30 years. I retired, came here to Williamsport. I'm on the first floor in the back of the bar. I have witnessed drug dealing. One of their employees did a drug deal in front of my window. I went to Peggy and I said to her, hey, he just did a drug deal. Oh, not him. He's a great daddy. Don't we even think about that? Nothing. I can't tell you how many times I witnessed them push the people out of the bar when there's a fight going on. So they say, oh, it didn't happen in the bar. How many drug deals I interrupted myself with them coming out of the bar, going in the car, getting the drugs, going back in the bar, come back out. Somebody pulls up, they come out of the bar, go in the car, do the drug deal, then turn around, go back in the bar. They don't care about anybody because they don't live there. 7 years I've been there, and 7 years I've been putting up with this. That's it, I'm done. Something needs to be done. They don't care about anybody except for getting the money. That's it. And 30 years, I've seen it, I've done it, and I've witnessed it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. If you would name and address for the record as well.
Oh, yeah, my name's Jeff Troutman. I live at the Waitman, 770 West Fourth Street. I want to start out by saying I'm new, so I have no history. You're all my friends. I mean that. Recently retired veteran. I picked Williamsport because of what it offers. I like a city this size. I like a bookstore. I like good pizza. I like bars. I like to drink beer. I love to drink beer. So I've been at the Waitman just over a year. And I'm here to say just, again, two things. I'm 63 years old. I've lived in 9 cities, inner city in my working career. I've never called 911. It's a great resource. I'm glad it's there. I have never called 911 except for the last few months of my life. I had to write an email to the firm saying tonight was my 7th call. You can tell I'm emotional because I want to like everyone. I want that bar to get fixed. Tonight was my 7th call to 911 for a fight in the back parking lot in the last 2 months. By back parking lot, I mean the Shamrock, and I'm not exaggerating. I always give my full name, my real phone number on these 911 calls, which I've never made before in my life. I don't call if there's loitering. That's not an emergency. I don't even call if there's arguing. That's not an emergency to me. The moment a fist is punched in somebody's face or a weapon comes out, whether it doesn't have to be a gun, it could be, I've seen hammers, I've seen tire iron. I call 911 because I'm on the 3rd floor in the middle. I have a bird's eye view. I'm talking to them. I'm like, there's 2 right now. Now there's 4. Now there's 6. I stay on the phone. They say, thank you. We have units on the way from other calls. I just wanted you to hear that. 63 years without a 911 call until this mess that I don't know. I've been around. I don't know how it happens. It's amazing. You should be amazed. Last point. During the big daytime melee where all the staff was out. I mean, it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was unbelievable. I think there were 4 to 6 police cars. Once it got calmed down, I went down there because I saw the staff was there. And I was just like this. I'm nervous as hell because I don't want this in my life. What gave me peace was a Williamsport police officer said to me, and I quote, "We have been trying to close this SHIT hole down for years." Thank you.
And then just a couple brief more moments. This is Richard Stetz, my maintenance supervisor. He also puts his heart and soul into this place. He's passionate about the Waitman, just like I am. We just love this property and we would love for this to be resolved. He's the one that also does all our camera, most of our camera work. So he's just wants to speak briefly. Thank you.
Thank you. Name again for the record.
As Cindy said, my name's Richard Stetz. I've been there for 7 years and I've been taking care of the property. I get called by the police 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I have an emergency phone in my pocket now for the police, for the fire department, for the healthcare, anything. I'm there 24/7. I can tell you from assisting them and going through the videos, things are escalating. When these young fellows get out there, they come out drunk, disorderly, they start fighting. One, just as you've seen on the video, one guy gets beat up. They won't rat each other out. They're going to wait for street justice. And their street justice is when the other guy comes out of the bar, they're going to be across the street in the bushes shooting. And unfortunately, I could be in the way. Cindy, our residents, we have bullet holes in the front of that beautiful old building. Windows broken out, bullet holes in our fire doors from this so-called street justice. The police always respond when there's a fight, but they scatter and nobody will press charges. And the police will tell me, they've told me time and time, they have to see it. They have to have somebody press charges. Now this escalates, and then what you've seen there, it isn't over with. It's going to get worse. As the weather comes, better and better, they stay later, the crowds get bigger, and the fights get worse. So I want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Any other comments from your?
I just want to say thank you for all your time. I really appreciate that. And I hope there's something that the city can do. We really love this property. It's absolutely gorgeous. You know, these people have beautiful apartments with 14-foot ceilings, 8-foot windows, and their yard is the Shamrock. And it's not right. It shouldn't be like that. And it's really upsetting to see all these terrible videos all the time. And I'm so over it. And I hope you can do something to help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other, I know there's one other comment from the public, but any other from the Waitman group? Okay. Thank you. Sure.
Good evening, everybody. I'm usually pretty good at public speaking, but I'm so hurt at just all the negativity about the Shamrock on West 4th Street. I am Mary Peachy Bernardi O'Connor, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf about some positive things about an establishment, the Shamrock. I am a family member. I'm not here because I am a family member. I understand many of the things that have been said and addressed, and I'm very hurt and wondering if, you know, there's 100% outlook on everything that's been said. It's just so one-sided. Shamrock's been in business for over 65 years, always been a family-run business that thrives to provide safe as possible and pleasant atmosphere and experience for their patrons. Shamrock's tried to provide good food, almost as good as mine at Ed's, but I have to be careful saying that now, and good service at a reasonable price, supported by many in the community. All levels of businesses and so on have been patrons of the Shamrock over these years. We want all of our customers to have a safe and fun experience, is what my cousin used to tell me while visiting. Some of the Shamrock rests, there's elderly ladies that are my age and a little older that go in there for lunch. And and a group of them love to come in for a good cheeseburger and a cold beer even, stop in throughout the days, despite the fact that they walk with the assistance of walkers even. They employ 20 people right now. They're friendly. I go in there and it's, I'm treated with respect. I was over there Sunday. It was my cousin's birthday. We celebrated. He's been gone since 2006. And I was greeted with, hey, Miss Peaches, come down. Let me buy you a cocktail. Friendly. The atmosphere, the servers. I got carded at the door too every time I go in, which I just love. I don't think that my side of the story is that the people who patronize it think it's a scary place. When I mention about going there because of their good food, they say, oh, and I say, you go to a local restaurant 3-4 doors up the street. Be careful, pick your time that you go, whatever. If there's a commotion, whatever, where isn't there a commotion in this day and age with drugs and alcohol? They've changed their hours. The last call is like at 11 o'clock at night. In order to address some of the complaints that have been presented, they do security. Shamrock keeps in contact with the Williamsport Bureau of Police. I know a lot of the policemen, they don't call it the name that was mentioned tonight ever to me, not because I'm family or friends of many of the people that work there and own the place. They're so involved in the community. After St. Patrick's Day, they give the leftover food to the food bank. They support Preservation Williamsport. They support Victorian Christmas. They're open all day for Victorian Christmas and have supported in sponsorships. They're involved. There's many positive things that they do as well. And I felt the need to speak tonight in that regard. Complaints are coming from the landlord and its employees, and they do have a financial interest in it. It's not all bad. I try to stay more positive in my life, especially in the last few years. And you can always find something wrong. And if it's safety and concern, we've been in most interested members of our community our whole lives, my husband and I don't condone what goes on, but it's so many places. And to accuse somebody of neglecting, the word that this is happening, that's happening. It happens on our street. And I live in a residential area behind the Shamrock. There's more apartments back there. I've seen it myself going to St. Joseph the Worker Parish. I could go on and on. The security, I think, is important. They've changed their hours. I believe there's a lot of positive things that needed to be said, and that's why I'm here tonight. So I agree, there's problems, there's issues, they're everywhere. And we just have to be cognizant of them and try to do the best that we can do rather than closing down someplace. I have a family member who used to say to me, no matter what happens on Camel Street or 4th Street, they mention the 600 block of Camel, the media. My cousin was in the hospital once back in 2005. Something happened on 4th Street. They mentioned the Shamrock, front page, newspaper. Another incident, front page, second section, Shamrock. And it happened like a block down the street. So I just say, I don't want to ramble on and on. I have a habit of doing that, sorry. But I just need you to understand where I'm coming from too. It's singled out. There's restaurants there. There's other businesses there. The people that sometimes are hanging out front, I go in there, I use the front door entrance or I use the back door entrance. We park out back, my husband and I, and they aren't always coming in or out of the Shamrock. They're milling around from up the street, outside of the apartments, down the street, outside of the restaurants, down the street. So there's two sides. Two sides is all I want to say. And thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Welcome, Mayor Campana.
Thank you. My name is Gabriel Campana. I live at 806 Rural Avenue, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of City Council, I'd like to thank all of you, first of all, for your service And number two, thank you for voting for the LRTA. We have former Mayor Rafferty here and Councilman Tom O'Connor. And when we served the city, LRTA was very, very beneficial. So thank you for doing that. On behalf of the business committee, I do have 3 questions, and I realize there will not be a dialogue back and forth. But I would appreciate if you could provide me this information before the next council meeting, or if you could contact the media so the media could provide this information. I think is very vital to our community. My questions are the following. Number 1, I noticed that there was progress on Lycoming College property in Old City on Basin Street, but for some reason that has come to a halt. And all of us from the prior council, we worked very, very hard in regards to the Old City. So I personally have that question. Some business people in that area have noticed that nothing has happened so far. There was a groundbreaking, etc., but things have come to a halt. The second question is, how much has the city spent on the COVID relief funds? I noticed that there was over $25.6 million that was given to the city. So we're curious, how much of that has been spent? Where has it been spent? And the third question that I have for tonight is the remaining amount. How much is left? And what is the goals for council and for the mayor? Is there a budget? And then the fourth question that just came into my mind because of this committee. Yes, my father used to always say that there's 2 sides to a story. That is an asset having that building, but it's also an asset to have that restaurant, bar, establishment. So my question for the city right now is, under the Rafferty administration, campaign administration, working with Tom O'Connor, we had an initiative that was called Walk and Talk. We mandated that officers during their shift had to get out of their vehicles and they had to walk in neighborhoods. I'd like to know, is that still being activated? If it is, they need to be down in that area because there are activities that occur outside that business that does not occur inside the business because it's a transient area for decades. If it isn't happening, then I'm recommending to City Council with the Public Safety Committee to tell the mayor that this needs to be reenacted. We need to see the boots on the ground walking throughout the city, but also in that neighborhood as well. So I'd appreciate that if you could articulate that to him. Thank you for your time. And if you could provide that information in the next couple of weeks or once again to the media, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or from the public? State your name, address, and the floor is yours.
President, Council, my name is Bill Logue, and I've been fixing up homes and commercial properties and churches from probably a long ways from here to Muncie to Lock Haven for the last quite a few years. I started when I was 12, and my concern is with City Hall. I've been an advocate for the rehabilitation of our historic architecture and for a long time. And I just, I have a couple things to say here. Some are facts and some are opinions. And we know it was condemned in 2021 and from unresolved water issues. And yeah, this is a City Hall is, I believe, is a cornerstone of our local government. Would probably help if I put my glasses on. As a cornerstone of local government and civic pride, visually and figuratively. We also have the citizens' right to our historic properties through the state constitution. The water is continuing to do damage to the building, and it's going to become exponential. During the winter, the freeze thaw periods, anybody knows about construction, what water does. It's one of the most destructive forces on earth. And I don't know if there's a plan B for not selling the place and fixing it up or not, but it doesn't seem like there is. The administration's attitudes towards our architecture seem to have sunk from apathy to contempt. Our housing stock is rotting away through neglect, just like City Hall. We have places all over the city that roofs are falling apart on nice places. There's at least 2 places out on Confusion Corners, beautiful homes. And they've been vacant, and the same thing is happening with our City Hall. You know, how many people in town, how many families in town have eyesores on their blocks that are diminishing their quality of life and the value of their homes? You know, we should be a vibrant community here that celebrates its cleanliness, its unique architecture, and the quality middle class housing. People are moving out of metropolitan areas and looking for quality of life in a small town like Williamsport. We should, if we do the right things, good things happen. I know we fought to save Park Home. We not only were able to keep Park Home and now is a vibrant property, but the Pam Gleichman from Portland, Maine came down to testify about the viability of Park Home, and she got interested in the Whiteman block. Well, now the Whiteman block got finished up. So we got 2 projects because we did the right thing and saved Park Home. And I think there are people on the administration that know instinctively that this is a wrong move, selling out our City Hall. And I know a lot of people, most people don't know how to deal with an old building. But maybe it's time to listen to some local craftsmen and professionals who know how to restore City Hall and maybe restore our city pride. You know, our City Hall could be so beautiful and so functional as an attractive part of our lumber heritage region. And we're letting the houses that are built from the lumber heritage people fall apart. You know, you were talking about housing. We don't have enough housing in this city for companies when they want to come here. There's houses rotting all over the city. I'd take an inventory of neighborhoods and see what housing we have and could be recycled and attract middle-class working families to this city to help with our tax base that keeps getting eaten up by the nonprofits and despicable landlords, you know, are a problem. But this is an opportunity here, and we can really do something to make it a definitive positive force and make this town what it could be, a vibrant community that attracts middle-class working families here. And if we don't, our quality of life is going to disappear. It's slowly disappearing. And it seems like the administration has always looked for things other than what we have here. We have everything we need right here to be successful. And our housing stock, our infrastructure is rotting away through neglect. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Mr. Huffman, the podium is yours, sir.
I'm Bruce Huffman, 1000 Cherry Street in Williamsport. Good evening, President Yoder, Vice President, councilors. I'm here to bring important and possibly unknown information to you regarding City Hall. I'll strive to be concise, but would appreciate your indulgence if I go over time. A Pennsylvania statute commonly known as the Donated and Dedicated Property Act may have an impact on how the city of Williamsport proceeds with City Hall. More about that after these two quick historical facts, both of which are recorded in City Hall, City Council minute books and the Williamsport Sun Gazette. First, on August 4th, 1977, the Williamsport Foundation granted the city $100,000 for the purchase of the former post office building for use as a new city hall. This donation covered the full purchase price. Two, at an official ceremony held in conjunction with the Williamsport City Council meeting of October 18th, 1979, the following resolution was passed with 7 yay votes. Resolution, dedication of City Hall, new City Hall. Whereas the city of Williamsport has received its charter from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1866, and whereas the city of Williamsport has continuously maintained its offices at 454 Pine Street since 1893, and whereas the city of Williamsport has purchased the former United States Post Office building at 245 West 4th Street and renovated the building for a new city hall, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Williamsport as follows. In order to more efficiently serve the citizens of Williamsport and provide a city hall in which the citizens and employees of the city can be proud, the former United States Post Office building is hereby dedicated as the City Hall of the City of Williamsport. Now, back to that Donated and Dedicated Property Act, or DDPA. Though I will provide you with copies, I feel it is important to read this act into the record. Property donated to political subdivisions for public use, Act of December 15th, 1959, an act providing for the orderly disposition of properties situate within political subdivisions and donated or otherwise dedicated or offered for dedication where no formal record appears as to the acceptance by the political subdivision as public parks, squares, or similar uses, and public buildings, and no longer necessary or practicable for such purposes, and granting orphans courts jurisdiction with respect thereto. The General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania hereby enacts as follows. Section 1, as used in this act, lands shall mean all real estate, whether improved or unimproved. Buildings shall mean all structures, including without limitation, open air theaters, halls, museums, libraries, and other buildings. Public facility shall mean without limitation, any park, theater, open air theater, square, museum, library, concert hall, recreation facility, or other public use. Section 2, all lands or buildings heretofore or hereafter donated to a political subdivision for use as a public facility or dedicated to the public use or offered for dedication to such use where no formal record appears as to the acceptance by the political division as a public facility and situate within the bounds of a political subdivision, regardless of whether such dedication occurred before or after the creation or incorporation of the political subdivision, shall be deemed to be held by such political subdivision as trustee for the benefit of the public with full legal title in the said trustee. Section 3, all such lands and buildings held by a political subdivision as trustee for the purpose or purposes for which they were originally dedicated or donated, except insofar as modified by court order pursuant to this act. Section 4, when in the opinion of the political subdivision, which is the trustee, the continuation of the original use of the particular property held in trust as a public facility is no longer practicable or possible and has ceased to serve the public interest, or where the political subdivision as trustee for the benefit of the public is in doubt as to the effectiveness or the validity of the apparent dedication because of the lack of a record of acceptance of the dedicated land or buildings, the trustee may apply to the county in which it is located for appropriate relief. The court may permit the trustee to, 1, substitute other lands or property of at least equal size and value held or to be acquired by the political subdivision in exchange for trust property in order to carry out the trust purposes. 2, if other property is not available, sell the property and apply the proceeds to carry out the trust purposes. 3, in the event the original trust purpose is no longer practicable or possible or in the public interest, apply the property or proceeds therefrom in the case of a sale to a different public purpose. Or 4, relinquish, waive, or otherwise quitclaim all right and title of the public in and to such land and buildings as have been apparently dedicated, but for which no formal acceptance appears of record, provided only that the court is satisfied upon hearing the evidence that there is no acceptance by implication arising out of public user or otherwise. The court shall also determine the consideration, if any, to be paid to the political subdivision. Section 5, in all proceedings under this act, the political subdivision shall give at least 10 days notice of the filing of its petition to the Attorney General, who may become a party thereto, and shall give notice to the public of the proposed date of the hearing by publication once a week for 3 successive weeks in the official legal journal of the county and in a newspaper of general circulation in the municipality, if there be one, or if not, in a newspaper of general circulation in the county. Any resident of the political subdivision or any group or organization or residents of the political subdivision shall have the right to file a protest, and in the discretion of the court shall be entitled to be heard in person or by counsel, or to intervene in such action and to be a party thereto. Section 6, nothing in this act shall be construed to limit or affect the control by a political subdivision of public lands or buildings acquired by such political subdivision by purchase or condemnation. Section 7, this act shall take effect immediately. Now, to wrap this up, I could be mistaken about this, but as an ordinary citizen, the way I read and understand the Donated and Dedicated Property Act is that the city of Williamsport holds and has held the property at 245 West 4th Street in trust for the public, for the benefit of the public, as an official city hall, as its official city hall since 1979. And that all lands and buildings held by the city of Williamsport as trustee shall be used for the original purposes for which they were dedicated. If the city of Williamsport believes that the property at 245 West 4th Street can no longer be used for its original purpose of a city hall, then it seems that it must petition the Orphans Court Division of the Court of Common Pleas of Lycoming County for relief from this requirement. It must then present evidence of its position at a public hearing of the court. The Orphans Court then will make the final determination as to the continued use of the originally dedicated purpose. I urge you, the city council, the mayor, the solicitors, and the public to learn more about the Donated and Dedicated Property Act. And just to give you another point, the borough of South Williamsport, our neighbors to the south, just went through this with a very small piece of land that they wanted to sell to the new Muncie Bank. They had a court hearing on April 4th. And in my packet I'm going to give you is going to have their legal ad that was in the newspaper. So I thank you for your kind attention and appreciate the time.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions from members of the public? Any comments or questions from the news media? I don't believe there's anybody here. Take a motion for adjournment.
No move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. For the members of the public that spoke, thank you for your patience through the meeting and for your comments. Have a good evening, everyone, and happy 4th.
It's a little late for me to apologize for all my failed attempts.